Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and this is our first ever Minnesota Vikings hate week. Fuck the Vikings. What's going on, Cranky Fan?
Well, I'm gonna say I had Minnesota hate week in 2000 for the NFC Championship game, so this is the second.
Well, for
version
you, but
of
this is our first. This is the
This
show's
is our
first
first together. That is correct.
Vikings hate week.
I think you were 3 weeks old when that game happened. So yeah,
2000. I was like 13.
You were 13.
Yeah.
He was just a pup.
Yeah.
A little baby Grump at the time. But I don't know, for all of you watching on YouTube, if you can see what is on my face, and it's not food, it is the return of the playoff beard. I started fresh Sunday night after the after the Eagle game, after the finale, and this sucker is going to grow hopefully through mid-February with the combination of dark and white, because I'm an old friggin' man. But we're just letting it rip. The Lucky Beard has had a lot of success over the last 20 or so years with Super Bowls and national championships and Stanley Cups. So it's back, and hopefully it's long living.
It will outshine its color, or outlast its color.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, because there wasn't a show then, in 2011, we did mustaches.
We had the Lucky Mustaches.
It was just mustaches, and I agreed because I think we made that decision at the Christmas party, which was the Washington game that they flubbed.
That's right.
And so I was like, yeah, I mean, whatever.
We gotta change the juju. So
yeah, so we did mustaches, and I was like, yeah, this thing could, and lo and behold, I had a porn stat, like a 70s
we looked
stash.
fantastic. God.
By February. That was I have some great
we'll
pictures
dig up
of
that
myself
picture and we'll put it on the Twitter page once
what sucks is I think the only picture of you and me with it is from the Falcons game, and I was sick it was cold. I was not I mean, I was excited, so I was pushing through it, but I'm pretty sure I had medicine that morning. I don't look very thrilled, but that's one of my favorite games I ever went to. I remember at halftime there was one poor soul Falcons fan sitting in front of us, and I think he wanted to hang himself from the rafters by that point.
And at that point, something, if you're that passionate about your team and you've gone through the Hort times we have, you don't want to make fun of that guy. You feel for him. It's just, you give him that look like, hey, man, I've been there.
This one stings, buddy, right?
Yeah, this one, something where you're going to think about this one all off season. But
I'm sure he thought about it until the Falcons blew a 28-3 lead, to be honest. And then that replaced that memory.
Well, then you go just jump off a bridge. Then it's over.
Sunday at on January 15th at 4:25 U.S. Bank Stadium, the New York Giants will be playing football against the Minnesota Vikings. The Cranky Fan and I will be in New York City at Mr. Purple, correct?
Yes, we will be at the Talking Giants watch party. We'll be there with Bobby and Justin and 98 other of our good friends. I feel like it's an event where we need to watch it with a lot of people. I could not watch this game in my apartment by myself. I would just I'd be pacing the apartment. I'd probably dig a hole through down to the floor below me. We need to watch this together as a Giant family, and so I am looking forward to that. I'm sure we'll get there early and
we'll hang out.
Enjoy Giant football. Yeah.
So, I mean, what's interesting is that I would rather, because in my heart and in my head, I'm going to be pacing and nervous and anxious, but also excited and angry. And normally I would say I would prefer to be home for this kind of game, or at a game, obviously. But I would prefer to be home and just be that manic version of myself where no one can see me or have to see me that way. But I thought about it, and this season is just very special. None of us expected to be here. Nobody. I mean, some people may have guessed our record predictions. Some people may have guessed 10 wins, 9 wins, something like that. But to rip off all the wins right at the beginning of the year, to have a Coach of the Year candidate, to be talking about contract extensions for both Barkley and Jones, to be going into Wildcard weekend confident that against a rematch against a number 2 seed. Nobody expected that, and that's special because this is a rebuild, and this year everything is a bonus. This is all gravy. This is all gravy. When we get into this game and we talk about where the Giants are lacking, that's because that was just kind of, the necessary, to field a playable team, and let's hope that we can just eke out some wins with it. No, they're all over. They're 9-7-1. They're here. They're here, and nobody wants to play them.
I mean, you're right, and we are the hip pick for this weekend. Of you watch all the talking heads, and they're like, that's the team I don't want to play right now, and one of the things we talked about last week was, do you rest all the starters? Do you want to kill momentum? Well, if you think about Minnesota right now, they've known they've won the NFC North for a long time. They've known they've been locked into the 2 seed for quite a while. They didn't play much of anybody last week. They basically been on cruise control for about a month. So, we had a critical game, in the last couple of weeks. We took this 1 week, sort of off, but we still played with an intensity of trying to win. So I wouldn't be worried as much about us being sloppy or rested and losing momentum and all that. Well, look across the field to that team and see if can they turn it on after being in the kind of blahs for quite a while.
Speaking of blahs, they got smacked by the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely bitch slapped. Immediately following winning against us with a ridiculous field goal that I'm pretty sure they were not expecting to hit.
It was a game that was, you take away that they won it because that game was pretty much even. And think about, where each of these teams are since December 24th. One team is getting guys back. One team is losing players.
That's true. So let's get into this injury report.
Yes.
Giants injury report is the best it's looked in quite some time. I mean, the IR list still sucks. That's not going to get better. But John Feliciano and Xavier McKinney were both full participants in practice today, Thursday, with a back and hand issue, respectively. The people that need to be watched the most are Leonard Williams with the neck injury, Evan Neal with the ankle injury, Azeez Ojulari with the ankle injury, and Adoree Jackson with the knee injury. Those guys were all limited.
Let's talk about Evan Neal first of that group,
Okay.
because he has been struggling lately, and he's had a kind of an up and down rookie year, and this is the first time we've seen him on the injury list in a while, right?
No,
I don't think he was on it last week or the week before.
right. I don't think he was on the injury list last week, but he did suffer. I want to say like week 7, something like that. Week.
Right, but he's been
Week
been
11,
really
so-
struggling like in the last couple of weeks. So, do you feel better about forget even this week, even talking about the progress of Evan Neal and the development of Neal? Do you feel a little better knowing, well, maybe he's hurt and that explains a lot of this, as opposed to rough end of the year, any doubts you might have about his development, or you don't have those really doubts and it's just a rookie playing in his 15th and 16th games and hitting that wall?
I don't have any issues with him having like a bit of a rocky rookie year. I think the issues that he's shown this year were exactly the issues to expect. So it's not like I got blindsided with some weird thing. I will say I don't feel better about the injury. I mean, it might explain why it's looked like maybe it's not as bad as it's looked because of the injury, but to me the injury sucks because that just limits his development in year 1. To me that just, I don't want to say it holds him back, but I don't think he'll develop as quickly when he has to play through an injury, right? I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
That's kind of how I feel. I feel nothing about the way Evan Neal struggled this year. I think it's all fine. It's all correctable, and he's a rookie. And
Yeah.
they're kind of the things we were expecting.
Yeah, my first initial reaction when I saw him on the list was actually a little bit of relief, kind of like, okay, that explains some things. So,
I
he's
could see
gonna,
that. I understand that.
And again, remember, limited means amount of reps he took is limited in practice. It doesn't mean his arm is limited in how much it can move or his ankle or anything. It's just, you know, a designation of, his level of practice during the week. He may come out on Sunday and do everything that, play all the snaps he normally would have, played.
And he's really the main one on offense. Now, offense is fairly healthy with the exception of like Sterling Shepard. You know what I mean? Like,
But yeah, and we've
they're
already written, and Wandale Robinson, but those guys are long gone.
Right, exactly.
And it's actually something that, they've been gone for so long that I just kind of completely forgot about Wandale Robinson and thinking about next year, like, oh, we need to get wide receivers. Like, oh, yeah, we have our second round draft pick coming back who I've just forgot about for 2 months. So,
yeah. And that's kind of an interesting question. This is sort of a tangent, but as I've done like some prep work for the draft, I'm like looking at these guys. And I'm like, yeah, but this is kind of like a Wandale Robinson clone. And then I'm like, well, do we want two of those? We might want two of those. And like also like when is he coming back? Because he tore his ACL fairly late in the year, and it's going to be a very interesting offseason for that kind of thing.
And also, if I can get a better version of him, I'll get him.
That too. Although the game he got hurt, he was playing out of his mind, which sucks.
Yeah. But something we also we had a better version of Wandale Robinson before we traded him, and it doesn't stop him from. No. I was not going down that road. I was actually saying, like, just because you have someone who fits the model or the the blueprint of something, that doesn't mean you're just not going to get another one of them if you think that will help your team.
True. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I didn't want to start a war. So.
I'm just teasing you. It's spoken even by Jerry Reese, who took a lot of criticism for drafting Jason Pierre-Paul in the first round in 2010, I want to say. Mm-hmm. When, I remember the jokes. The Giants are going to field 11 defensive ends on defense. I remember it. And I don't think anybody regrets that draft pick.
No.
Especially when, like Matthias Kiwanuka was supposed to be like one of the arguments for why you don't. It's like, is he that good? OCU Manura was like in his like millionth season at that point. He only stuck around for a couple more years after that. So it was definitely a perfectly fine pick.
Just on JPP, just a quick tangent. Is he Ring of Honor worthy?
I say no.
I agree.
I mean, the year he blew his hand up, the argument, that was his contract year. And the argument was at that time, he only showed up really in 2011. That was like statistically speaking. Now, I think that he was more than that, but
remember,
but I mean, it's not like he came into the league and then had a dominant 2011 and then stayed dominant. That didn't happen.
Right, but you remember that sometimes you get into the Ring of Honor and you become a giant legend based upon, your romanticized thoughts of him and memories of a guy. And he sounds like one of those guys that, like a Paul O'Neill for you Yankee fans, who's like, good, but he's not retired number level. And I feel like,
you asked me, so
yeah,
I agree with you though. Yeah.
Yeah. My rule of thumb, I'm always a very harsh grader when it comes to Ring of Honor, retired numbers, Hall of Fame. If I have to think about it, the answer is no. Yeah. And for him, that's certainly when I hear that pause, that's a no.
Well, so yeah. And I think right now, I think most Giants fans will tell you no. But I think if you give it anywhere between 5 and 10 years after he retires, I think they'll soften up. I think a lot of that goes away because he played a significant amount of time with other teams.
Right. But like in 5 years, if he's in a Knick game and on Celebrity Row, there's JPP, he's going to get a standing ovation.
Probably, yeah.
He'll get like the Justin Tuck treatment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, he will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know though. I still don't think so. But who knows?
Yeah.
Bringing us back to defense though, that like I said, Evan Neal, John Feliciano, they're really the only offensive injuries that we have to worry about. And John Feliciano was a full participant in practice today, Thursday. The defense is really where the focus is. Xavier McKinney, another full practice, played a full game last week, just about. I think they only took him out when like at the very end.
Right.
So all eyes are really on Leonard Williams, Azeez Ojulari, and Adoree Jackson, right?
And those are probably three of the biggest difference makers we have.
All of them got a week of rest last week. Jackson hasn't stopped resting for like 8 weeks, but
He's Rip Van Winkle at this point. Yeah.
I mean, if last week was the playoff game, you agree Leonard Williams and Azeez Ojulari play, right?
I think if last week is winning you're in, they would have played.
Right. Adoree Jackson, I'm not so sure on, but I honestly think he probably would have. I mean, they were very like kind of maybe whatever. I'm not sure. And I was saying that I'd like him to get a couple snaps to knock the rust off.
Right.
But he didn't. He's still. It seems like it's still kind of dubious whether or not he plays. Gut feeling for you.
He plays.
I think he plays.
And I don't think he's going to play every snap, but I definitely think he'll be in a rotation. He'll get some he'll get some run.
Yeah, I certainly think so.
And we're gonna when we get into our game analysis, I think one of the things we're gonna bring up is something that's an advantage to him. I think that may not have happened even if we played them the first time. So.
Well, now on the flip side of the ball, like you were saying, one team is getting healthy, the other's getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Since we last met Minnesota, they had to IR their right tackle, Brian O'Neill.
Yes.
And that is huge. Interesting, our right tackle is limited in practice and center was a full participant. Their right tackle is on IR, and their center just came back to full participation today.
And I'll throw you one even more. Their backup right tackle just returned, was cleared to play from IR. That doesn't mean necessarily he's going to play either or be 100%.
Well, that's my thing here. Garrett Bradbury has a back injury that he further tweaked in a car wreck or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The focus was if he couldn't play, that Dexter Lawrence was going to eat versus a third string center. Mm-hmm. And now I think I felt the collective sigh of relief from the northern regions coming down in the wind because Garrett Bradbury was a full participant in practice. But I don't know, man. Like, first full participation in practice, and it's like 4 days before the game. My gut tells me he's not 100%. I would say probably 85 at best.
Sure, absolutely. And something that's going to be our key to winning this game is, we have a very good pass rush. We have a very good front four. We have a defensive coordinator who just loves to bring the house as often as possible. You take away, 2/5 of that offensive line. This might be what I was saying before, is kind of alluding to, is where, if Adoree Jackson's not quite 100% or has limited snaps, an increased pressure on the quarterback and making Cousins run around and get out of his normal rhythm and stuff, that will offset any potential, questions we have in the secondary right now. So this is the game right here. If we can get sustained pressure and keep Cousins, off his mark, I think we're going to win this game big.
I mean, when you're lining up against Dexter Lawrence, you better come correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because we haven't announced this yet. Dexter Lawrence voted to All-Pro. How about that? You said that a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you remember this, you made me play a game of Guess the Defensive Tackle.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. And what did we say at the end of that? That's entering All-Pro territory. I might find that clip, because I definitely clipped that and put that on like Twitter and Instagram. I'll pull that back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was hell yeah. Way to go, Dexter Lawrence. It's like the first All-Pro I can remember the Giants having in how long?
And something, it's nice that he's recognized because, Leonard Williams is the name that people know because of the trade and the contract and that whole thing.
Also the draft pick. I mean, he was drafted in the top 5, wasn't he?
Right. And then also, Kayvon Thibodeau gets a lot of press because he was a high draft pick. He's a flashy name. He's really come on as a rookie. But the glue of that defensive line is Dexter Lawrence, the guy who's made the most consistently important plays in critical spots is Dexter Lawrence. And, if this team is 4-13. He's probably not a Pro Bowler, but a little bit of attention because of winning. I'm just glad that they didn't overlook him, and it's well deserved and a huge honor.
I was going to say something pithy, but I forgot it. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, just that I feel vindicated. I know I've said this before, but I feel vindicated because I remember being kind of excited for that draft pick. I didn't expect it. And
mm-hmm.
I went straight to my notes and I was like, oh, yeah, I really love this guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, you go to Twitter and it's like, we drafted a 2-down run stuffer in the top 20. I can't believe this. And for years, that was the narrative. For
Mm-hmm.
years, it was that Dexter Lawrence and it was like showing people numbers. Like, I don't know, he's pretty good. Like, it's statistically, I can throw this right in your face. And now it's a consensus. He's an all-pro defensive tackle. And
Yeah.
he leads the team in sacks and quarterback hits, I think.
Yeah.
If not hits, then hurries.
Well, you know what it also is? It's a tribute not only to him, but the fact that he's got some really good teammates around him where he doesn't have to be double teamed on every play.
I think also the system helps him out a lot.
Sure.
Offensive linemen not being sure for the split second who's coming or going is
Mm-hmm.
enough time for him to get an angle advantage, a leverage advantage, and just let his strength take over and his motor, really.
I don't want to get into 2023 just yet, but the decision about Leonard Williams, what we're going to do with his contract and everything. I really would love to see these four guys together again next year with another season, another off year.
A healthy season.
Exactly. I was going to say, not only having another season in the program throughout the offseason, but having all four of those guys, not the vast majority of the time where they're not all four together, but the vast majority where they are together. Because that jump from year one to year two together and in this system again, and we'll talk about Wink Martindale and what the future may hold for him in a little bit. But yeah, it just, again, I am super excited about this weekend. I'm so happy we're back in the playoffs. But in the back of my mind, it's like we've started something that, next year I'm going to go into that season not happy to be here, but expecting even bigger and better things.
Oh,
That's what we want to be as Giant fans.
I am right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
Really quick, other Minnesota Vikings injuries. Linebacker Brian Asamoah has a knee injury. He was a full participant this week as well. He punched the ball out of Daniel Bellinger on a key drive that if that hadn't happened, I'm pretty sure the Giants would have won. And Harrison Smith, big one, knee injury. I mean, I think he's a former All-Pro safety, is he not?
I believe he is.
Yeah. Huge thing for him to not be 100%. I think that he is mostly resting right now. But nevertheless, if he's in any capacity playing under 100%, that is a massive win for the Giants right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the game itself instead of just the teams. Where do you want to start, offense or defense?
Let's start with offense.
My number one thing, I have three main things here.
Okay.
My number one thing is to help Evan Neal out. He's hurt.
Okay.
He's been struggling with speed, and he had a bad stretch of games lately, the Minnesota game included. Mm-hmm. I think if they can get some chips or just regular help with a tight end, if you can roll out to the left instead of the right, use some wide receiver crack blocks, whatever it takes to help the edge, that's probably going to be the weakest spot on the offensive line. And I know that Dalvin Tomlinson is in the middle for them and that John Feliciano, Nick Gates, Ben Bredesen, those guys, Mark Lewinsky, they're not the stars of this offensive line. But I'm still most worried about that edge spot. If they can, running zone reads, that will slow down edge pressure as well. They have to take that extra step and that extra beat before they just close in, or else they're going to pay for it.
I agree 100%. I mean, this is the Daniel Jones. Everybody's been very excited about him, about, what he can do with his legs, how he's matured this year. This could be a real opportunity for him to really make his mark on a national stage, of the playoffs and everything, and really affect this game. Doing it, using his legs more out of necessity to protect Evan Neal is one thing, but just keeping this defense off balance. And he's shown all year, the ability to extend plays, get the first down when necessary. I think this offense needs to be consolidated down to its two best players. Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, and have them do the yeoman's work. This wide receiver crew has been put together with piss and vinegar, and they've done a heroic job, but they are not game breakers. They are not, even some of them, I'm still even worried about their reliability in big spots. But you have two guys right now that are playing at Pro Bowl and honorable mention or levels. The ball has to be in their hands more, and they have to do more things.
So you led into my next 2 points. Danny Wheels. I get Danny on the move and let him improvise as well. What we've seen in the last couple of weeks is, allowing him to move and to bait defensive backs, coverage guys away to open up throwing lanes and stuff like that. He has hugely improved in that area. And we've seen it the last couple of weeks. On top of that, make Minnesota guard the run on the edges, the pass on the move, and the scramble. That is what Daniel Jones gives you. He's a straight-up runner around the edge. He can pass while running, and if nothing's there, he can just straight-up scramble. Make them have to defend all that. They're not that good on defense.
And also now, I think Daniel Jones has proven to this coaching staff that they trust him now. There's no training wheels on him. He's allowed to make his own decisions more. This is the playoffs. This is now do or die. This is not, well, I'm saving you for the playoffs, or I'm trying to save you from the wear and tear of a regular season. This is it. This is the playoffs. And allowing him to, be yourself, make the decisions, be aggressive. I think this fits into him having potentially a monster game on the ground, and I'm not going to predict 150 yards rushing like I did early in the year, but I'm going to predict you're going to see him with more carries and more extending drives, more, 3rd and 5, him just taking off, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, taking the ball out of somebody's belly and running it himself. So I'm expecting to see a lot of carries out of him, and not because out of necessity, out of design.
Oh, I 100% agree. And my last offensive point here is go with the game plan from the last couple weeks here. Come out throwing, finish running. Put Minnesota on their heels very early with a strong combination of downfield passes and the flat screen pass. Use that Saquon Barkley running to the flat as an extension of the run game. Get him a head start on the edge. Let him do his thing in space. That's what he does best, is make people miss. Hit them with quick slants right off the bat. Then use that to punish them with double moves and Daniel Jones runs. And then lastly, once you've put them on their heels, wear them down. Run Saquon right up the A and B gaps to put the dagger in them. Use that duo run that they were doing against Washington at the end of the game to close it out. Just beat them into submission, because Barkley does have the unique ability to truck through people as well. He's got thighs bigger than my waist. To me, that's the offensive game plan going into this. But I know that Mike Kafka is going to have some cool stuff up his sleeve.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Two points I wanted to add to that. In the last meeting on Christmas Eve, Barkley had 14 carries. He had 84 yards, but 14 carries. He also had 10 targets. But you could make an argument at that particular game, there was a little bit of load management being done for him. That wasn't the Washington game where it was do or die. That was a game that, they probably looked at the schedule earlier in the season and thought, well, this game doesn't quote unquote mean as much as, the Washington game would, for example. So my guess is you're not going to see the same game plan you saw with Barkley in that first game. You're going to see a lot more of a heavy dose of Barkley. I expect the carries to be around the 25 to 29 range.
Well, what I was going to say was, would you consider 20 to 22 carries to be load management still? Because I think probably 8 of those 10 targets you could qualify as extensions of the run game.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit. I mean, again, I want the ball in his hands as much as possible. is nice for all these receivers and what they've done. They don't have the big play potential that this guy does, and just big play doesn't necessarily mean a 50-yard run. A big play means when it's 3rd and 4, he's going to get the first down. Dependability. So that's that to me is the key. Is it has to be a heavy amount of him.
So I wanna bring up Kafka because we have
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot of stuff throughout the season. Some adjustments, changes to the offense, how we attack things. He's certainly very good at running something that's very effective and then running variations off of it to just completely confuse opponents.
Mm-hmm.
He has 2 interviews scheduled with the Texans and Panthers. Just really quick, because I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but like,
Yeah.
are you worried that he's going to take a job this year? As in, you think it's going to happen, and are you worried if it does happen?
No and no. No, because again, I think this is his first run through the cycle. Um, you know, he's a young guy. He's really running. I would say he's really running Brian Dable's offense. We've seen some wrinkles in the later part of the year, which might be his own, you know, incorporation of his own ideas and stuff. But I don't think he is ready to, you know, I don't think he's the master yet of being over to not only take over an offense of another team, but also be the head coach and everything that's entails with that. So I would say no. I think he might have an interview or two, but I think this is not his cycle just yet. And the other thing is, would I be upset about it I would like him to stay because I want the continuity of a second year with everybody together. Part of a rebuild is building your team and having another offseason with him where nothing has to change. I mean, Daniel Jones has had how many head coaches and how many offensive coordinators in his career? A lot. So it's really more, I want him to be there to keep a solid foundation than him itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and I agree with you. I would also add I'm not overly concerned about it happening, also because it's his first time as an offensive coordinator, first time ever calling plays, and an offense that scored over 30 points just one time.
Yeah, I was going to make that point as well. It's like, let's play devil's advocate a little bit. It's like, this is not the greatest offense in the universe. I mean, it is a lot more efficient than it was. It's but it's still not a great offense. And again, part of that's not his fault because of the wide receivers we have, the issues in the offensive line, injuries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, if I am just the average NFL fan and I'm just flipping around on a Sunday on Sunday Ticket, and I'm watching the Giants, I'm not like, oh my God. I mean, Kansas City's offense isn't this good. So I think it's still, I think he's getting these interviews because of the improvement over last year.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
honestly they're picking his brain a little bit.
exactly. And I think next year you see continued, if Daniel Jones is back, if Barkley is back, we get another lineman, Wanda Robinson's back, we get a receiver. And this offense starts to hum and we start, butting up against 30 points a game a lot more. I think he'll more than likely be gone. But that's that's not a concern for me this year.
Right, correct. Okay. Talk to me about Daniel Jones and Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah, it was interesting. Danilowski had his own power poll ranking all of the quarterbacks that are starting in the playoffs. So we have 14 quarterbacks that are starting. Um, and these are guys that are currently starting, not guys like Tua, who's injured and is not playing for Miami. Um, Daniel Jones is listed 8th on this list. He is ahead of Trevor Lawrence. He's ahead of Kirk Cousins. He's ahead of Dak Prescott. He is behind one spot behind Tom Brady. He's behind Lamar Jackson, who hasn't played in forever. And then obviously, the Herberts and the Hurts and the elite of the elite up top. Do you think, as of right now, we did a thing about a month ago or so where we went through all 32 teams and said better or worse, and we had him about mid-pack in the league. How do you feel about him being 8th on out of 14 that are playing this week and next week.
I think that it's about right. And it doesn't. I mean, I know I don't like Dak Prescott among also not liking the Dallas Cowboys, whatever. But it almost seems like suddenly people realize what I was saying for years. Dak Prescott has a whole lot of stuff at his disposal and turns the ball over a lot. This year, he had 15 interceptions. That's the same amount of total turnovers the Giants offense had. He had 19 total turnovers, which is more than the entire offense. And he missed like 5 games.
Yeah.
So think about that. The Cowboys are playing kind of flat. I don't know that that's necessarily his fault, but he's not elevating them. So, it might be that Dak Prescott is just a guy that's on a roster that's filled with a lot of offensive help. I don't know, but it certainly looks that way. I mean, you look at what Daniel Jones has to throw to, what he has blocking for him. It's certainly a lot less, and he's squeezed just about every drop of water out of the rock as he could, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But, I mean, he also still does a couple dimwit things. I think he had a fumble in the Minnesota game that he recovered. Evan Neal recovered.
I mean, Josh Allen has a lot of turnovers, too. I mean,
I know, but I mean, the fumble in question was the same old kind of Daniel Jones thing where he's just not seeing it or not feeling it fast enough, and he's just still in the pocket. And I'm not here to complain about that because he has severely reduced the amount of occurrences with that. I'm just saying it's always going to kind of be a thing with him.
Sure.
I
it's
think
always going to be in the back of everybody's mind that, like,
I mean, I think at this point now, most of the time we're seeing him feel that pressure and get out of the way. So once he's running, I'm not really worried anymore. It's the not feeling it that worries me.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be something like every time Richie James goes back to field a punt, everybody in the back of their mind is, don't drop it.
Which is so dumb because it was 2 times in the same game, and I get that, but it's like...
Right. So I think there's always going to be some people who are going to in the back of their mind of when, a blindside rush is coming at him, don't fumble.
Yeah.
Question I have for you, Daniel Jones is 8th. Tom Brady is 7th. For this Giant team in 2022, would you rather have Tom Brady or Daniel Jones as your quarterback?
Daniel Jones. And I think it's no question. For this Giants team?
Yes.
For the mobility alone. I think this team doesn't win the games it wins if they have a statue as a quarterback, whether he's Tom Brady or not. I'll say that much. What about you?
I'm looking at it, and I'm saying Daniel Jones because I'm looking at it a little like longer picture where Tom Brady is a quarterback you bring in if your window is right now, and that window is probably shutting in a year or two. Daniel Jones is still, it's his 5th year, but he's still on the ascendancy of his career. The Giants are still in that gray area of rebuilding and all of a sudden window maybe opening for playoff success. And I'd rather have Daniel Jones, this year go through this, his first playoff run, get the experience, get that, the playoff reps. So next year and the year after, when he has a better offensive line, he has better weapons, that can be kind of manifested into something bigger and better as they build onto this team. So, and to your point also, he does things that Tom Brady simply can't do. He never really could before, but right now, he's a quarterback that is deliberately trying not to get hit. So his release is super quick. And, that might not be what this team does to, we don't have a Mike Evans or, guys like that. So I agree with you. I mean, for this circumstance in this situation, I'd rather have Tom to Daniel Jones, both for this game, this year's playoff, and going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's not even me like with any kind of bias. It's just kind of where we are right now.
Yeah.
Flipping it to the other side of the ball, I have 3 points as well. The first thing is to keep everything in front of you. No big chunk plays. Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson are big play threats. Cook, while he did have over 4 yards per carry, he didn't really break anything huge in the last matchup. Justin Jefferson was the beneficiary of 12 catches on 16 targets, but never really had a catch longer than 25 yards. They need to lessen the amount of completions to Justin Jefferson, but I think the way they prevented him from a big chunk yardage plays was kind of the right formula for success. Same thing with Dalvin Cook, because it's one thing to give up like a bomb play, but when it's a run, somehow that just hurts more.
It feels more deflating.
Yeah, because it feels like he ran through 11 guys versus a receiver making some giant 70-yard catches. Like, well, he caught the ball and he ran past the one guy. What are you going to do?
Yeah. What is Dalvin Cook's injury status? Didn't he get hurt last week?
Well, he's not on the injury report, so I would say he's fine.
Then I guess he's okay. Okay.
The other thing, Hawkinson kind of killed us.
Mm-hmm.
The play in which he scored a touchdown, he had Micah McFadden literally running in circles.
Yeah.
But where I feel a little bit better about this, and this isn't really so much as like a key to the game, I just think in general having Xavier McKinney back is going to help that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I just, I don't know. I mean, part of it is making sure everybody's got the lineup right and, knows who's covering who and who's doing what. And the other thing is that he's a good coverage safety. I feel good about that. I feel good about that matchup. And this is my last point on defense, but it's a huge one. Generate pressure with minimal rushers.
Yeah.
We said it already. The Minnesota Vikings are hurt at center and they're hurt at right tackle. That's huge. And they're not that good as an offensive line anyway.
Yeah.
The Vikings are without those people. Eat those advantages. Overwhelm a hurt center with some A-gap pressure in addition to Dexter Lawrence. Confuse a backup tackle. Bring speed to the backup tackle. And as it is, the Vikings are a good blitz pickup team. We saw that when we played them.
I think you just be very strategic and very targeted on when you blitz. I know it's not a.
Well, I mean, I know we're not going to stop blitzing, but maybe we don't need to blitz with 7 guys. If we can blitz more with just 5 guys and the occasional 6 guy, generate pressure with less assets. The extra assets will be able to cover the screens that killed us in that game.
I think the confusion factor is just as important as the actual getting 7 guys on them or 6 guys up there. Just what are they going to do? And maybe playing them not too long ago might be helpful because they may be keying on things that we do completely differently this week. So
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And to go with that, in that game, like I said, the Vikings were pretty good at picking up blitzes in that game, but there were definitely times where Cousins was under pressure, and there were definitely times that he was just blindly throwing in the direction of Justin Jefferson to survive the pressure and just hoping for a catch, and generally getting either DPI or just not to take anything away from Cousins because he threw some dots while he was under pressure, but he kind of just got lucky that on the back end, we don't have anything great in that matchup to cover Justin Jefferson. So you were either going to get a defensive holding call or he was going to be open.
He threw dots, but something? The more times you put pressure on him, the less likely he's going to throw those dots. And it starts to get into your psychologically, affect you. If he's getting beat up all game and he's thinking really hard and he starts thinking, period, that takes away something from a quarterback too. So I think we have to set the tone early in this game. We have to. I would be as aggressive and as confusing and as intricate on that first series of the game to set the tone that we're bringing the house in 100 different directions and 100 different looks and 100 different schemes. So you don't know what we're going to do the rest of the game. If we come back, we come out of that first drive and he kind of just picks us apart, that's going to worry me. But if we can kind of come up, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a 3 and out, even if it's like a 4 or 5 play drive, but he just sees all different things and we can kind of sense that we can get to this offensive line. I think that's really going to affect a guy like Cousins because remember, Cousins has been hearing it his whole career also, and I'm sure he's been hearing it this year that, like, when was his last playoff win? And for the amount of money he's making, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on him on Sunday as well. I feel the Giants, we're playing with house money.
Yeah,
And
we're coming in here with no expectations, right?
yeah. I mean, we're the hip pick, but it's not like there's pressure on us because everybody's picking us. It's like, hey, we were the same motherfuckers that weren't even supposed to be here last
We're
year.
just happy to be here.
Yeah.
You are 100% correct on that, and I love that idea of coming out just pistols firing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even say it would be cool for the first two series if they came out super ultra aggressive, and then by the third series and for the majority of the game, not saying take your foot off the gas, but just start doing completely different stuff. Just
That's it. Confusion.
Throw them off. Yeah.
Confusion. Yeah. It's gonna be how we play between the ears is gonna be almost as important in this game as how we play, with the muscles and the legs and everything.
And I think that, we were talking about Justin Jefferson and throwing blindly and whatever. I truly do think that Adoree Jackson's going to play in some capacity in this game. I do not think that when and if Kirk Cousins starts throwing blindly to Justin Jefferson, that will have the same results as last matchup. 12 of 16 for 125 and a touchdown or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think it's going to be that successful just throwing with your eyes closed.
Well, first of all, you may not see the 16 if he's playing.
True. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, there were 16 targets because who was covering him?
Darnay Holmes.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden, if even if it's an 85% Adoree Jackson, that's different.
You're 100% on.
I'm in playoff mode.
There you go. Special teams. My one note: don't need to be the difference maker, and that goes in both directions. Just fair catch the ball. Just kick it out of bounds. Just make your extra points. Just punt the ball. Stop being cute. Don't try and do anything. I mean, we saw it. I don't even know if we mentioned this on the last episode. Last week, they did all kinds of fakes and stuff because the game didn't matter. Every part of special teams sucked balls last week. It was terrible. We can't operate anything cute on special teams. The best we can hope for is to catch the ball and not fuck it up.
I felt they did all that funny stuff for two reasons. I think one was, why is Barkley having a Georgia helmet on? Oh, never mind. One is, I think they wanted just to try to generate a little something for the offense because it was, completely dead in the beginning of the game. But the bigger thing is, I think they just wanted to put something on tape just to show playoff teams going forward that we have this in our back pocket. Doesn't mean we'll ever use it again. Doesn't mean it was any good when it does happen. But if you spend 5 minutes in practice trying to, okay, they did this, be on the lookout for this, that's 5 minutes less that you spent on what really matters, I think.
That makes sense. In general, though, just as far as special teams go, we're not good enough. We're not good enough. We're not coached well enough for that. Just fair catch the ball, or just catch it, run, go out of bounds, cover the ball. Just don't be the difference maker. Just don't do it, because we're not going to be the good kind of difference maker. Well, that'll be the fumble that kills this game.
Can you imagine Giants Twitter if back to receive a punt is Adoree Jackson?
Oh my God! Can you imagine me? I might leave the. I don't.
You might
know.
burn the city down if that happens.
Man, I didn't even consider the possibility.
Hey, if I could bet my $1 to win a $500, I'd take that bet.
Well, why don't you bet $1 on a score outcome for this game?
Ooh. I'm very excited about this game, Grump. We've waited a very long time. And, if we would have played Philly in the first game, or if we were in the AFC, if we had to play Kansas City in the first game, I would have a very dampened, muted expectation and be like, well, I truly am just happy to be here. And, 3 hours later, this will all be over. But this Minnesota team, I don't know how much we've talked about it on the show, but we've seen the numbers behind the numbers. And Minnesota is a team that is outkicking its coverage. They are perfect this year in one-score games. They've won a few games on last second kicks. They got that it this year. That doesn't mean they're better than, one of the elite teams in this league. They are just winning. And, you know, we played them basically even on Christmas Eve. With again, I started the show. I said, which team is adding players of importance and which team is losing players of importance, and I think that might be the difference for this. Um, you know, we have two rookie head coaches. This is their first, playoff rodeo as head coaches. Um, we have a quarterback for the Giants who's never seen the playoffs before. We have Cousins hasn't played in a playoff game, I think, since 2019, maybe 18, something like that. So there's a lot of variables and unexpected things that can potentially happen once the lights are brighter. Um, I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a huge game. I really do. I think we are going to lean on him more than we have in the last month and a half, 2 months. He's our best weapon. We can use him out of the backfield, running the ball, catching those little, things out of the back. I think we're going to see some things we haven't seen before in offense. I think we're going to see more of the two running backs back there. I think you might see like a Richie James, kind of like an end around or something we haven't seen in a while. I think the key to this is to kind of keep them on their toes, offensively and defensively. And, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think we're going to squeak this game out. I think we're going to win a moderately scored game. I think Daniel Jones plays turnover free. I think this defensive line plays out of their ass. I think we win this game 24-17.
I think that this game is a win, and I'm not sure that I would feel exactly the same way as I feel right now as if they had won the first matchup. I'm not really sure. I don't know. What do you think about that? Would you feel as confident if they had already won, or would you feel less confident?
I'd feel more confident because I felt we beat them already.
Okay. Well, I think really what drives me here is exactly some of the things you said. Getting healthier, one team getting not. Hot's hot, cold is cold. The Giants are hot right now. They kind of went through their slump. They had their slump bust against Washington. They busted all over the Colts. And they got
sick.
They had a free ride against the Philadelphia Eagles. They are coming out here hot, angry, ready to bury this team. They're ready to just keep winning. They're not satisfied with going to the playoffs. Minnesota, on the other hand, they kind of shakily limped their way into it. And like you said, they've known that they were going for quite a while now.
And they've known they've pretty much been the 2 seed for quite a while as well.
Right. I think the Giants come out here, and it may not start real fast on offense, but I think it starts real fast on defense. And I think that there's just a feel to this game early that the Giants are ready and the Vikings are kind of adjusting to whatever the Giants are trying to do. And they're playing catch up the whole time.
We were so happy last week that this team showed fight in a meaningless game, the backups and everything. And that's all I really want to see this week. I want to see the aggression from this coaching staff and the players that even if we lose this game, they went down fighting and they went down trying to be aggressive and trying to make things happen. So, if we're bringing the house all the time and they beat us because of it, so be it. I'd rather do it that way than just being on our heels the whole game and trying to play a prevent mentality. If we do that, I'm going to be disappointed in, the outcome. But if we super wink ourselves on defense and just lay the wood and bring the house, and we are aggressive but play calling on offense, and because Mike Kafka and Wink Martindale are this is kind of a job interview for them also. This is their portfolio, and this is the last thing that some of these head coaching search committees are looking at. It'll be fresh on their minds. So now's the time. So let's put the stamp on this season.
And I think they do. I think they put the stamp right on them. I think this one ends. I don't think this is a moderately scored game at all. I think this game ends 30-20, and I think the defense really punishes the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, maybe Justin Jefferson will have a game or whatever. Maybe Dalvin Tomlinson will rip something off, or Dalvin Cook will rip something off. But I don't think. I think maybe halftime there'll be like a 10-point difference or something after Dalvin Cook does something. Fine, whatever. Maybe only 7 points, maybe only 3 points. But I think there's a general feel right from the kickoff that the Giants came ready and angry, and the Vikings are adjusting the other way around. I think that this game is over by 2 scores, 30-20.
Let's put it this way. I do not see Jefferson and Hawkinson both having the games that they did last week. I think one of them will. I mean, Jefferson may get his because he's elite and he's great, but I think you're going to see the key of this is going to be shutting down Hawkinson. He's not going to have that 100-yard game that he did. And if he does, we're not going to win.
Let's go around Wildcard weekend. Saturday at 4:30. Seattle is at San Francisco. I feel that this is still San Francisco, Brock Purdy or otherwise. I feel just Seattle's not good enough to deal with San Francisco's defense and Kyle Shanahan's offense.
The cranky wife will be happy. I think San Francisco's going to roll. I think San Francisco's really good. And, Brock Purdy is a better version of Jeff Hostetler. Just someone who's just not going to make, mistakes, doesn't have to win the game for you, but there's enough weapons around him, and that's a great defense. I think they're going to roll. It's still Geno Smith. I know he's had congrats to him on a good year, coming back from the dead and everything, but now it's the playoffs. Now you're playing great teams, and I don't see it.
Saturday at 8:15, the Al Michaels game. The Los Angeles Chargers are at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Chargers, I don't know what the hell happened where they decided they were going to play all of their starters in a meaningless game against the Broncos and lose. Yikes. You said the same thing when we were debating, do you want to, keep the momentum going and play your starters in week 18? And you said, well, what if you play the starters and you lose? Do you lose the momentum? I hadn't thought of that, and I think that might have happened here.
And they had some injuries, too.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was a complete disaster.
Was it Mike Williams fucked up his back or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
on the flip side, Jacksonville's beaten the shit out of every single team they played since they got their asses handed to them by us. So
yeah,
I think this one's Jacksonville all the way, and Duval, go for them. Good.
Yep. Same. It's you said the Al Michaels game. It's Al Michaels and Tony Dungy, not Kirk Herbstreit. Do you know why?
No.
Al Michaels, those Thursday night games are Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. They're on Amazon, but Al Michaels is an announcer emeritus with NBC, so that means they can bring him back for occasions when they have 2 games. Kirk Herbstreit is not an NBC employee,
Gotcha.
So they had to bring in Tony Dungy. Little fun tidbit I read today.
How do you think that's gonna go? Tony Dungy is not a real exciting voice.
No, I mean you got 2 guys that are going to be half asleep.
I said the same thing. I had this back and forth with Snacks about how good Al Michaels is or isn't. It's just he's going to be asleep by 9:30.
Yeah, I just don't think and I don't think it's not that he's not good anymore. I just think he doesn't have that energy like he used to.
Yeah, why the hell they keep putting him on the night game?
Because he's Al Michaels.
Yeah, I guess so, man.
You get a lifetime pass when you ask if you still believe in miracles.
Sunday at 1:00, Miami at Buffalo. Do you believe in miracles, or is this the Buffalo Bills?
On that quarterback list, Skylar Thompson was last.
Yeah. Do you know where he went to school?
He was in the SEC, wasn't he?
I have no idea. I was going to say I don't know. That's how little I know about Skylar Thompson. I don't know anything about him. Miami without Tua.
Kansas State. I apologize to I apologize to Julie out there. It's Kansas State.
You should apologize to the SEC. Yeah, Buffalo. If they're not winning for DeMar Hamlin, then they're winning just because Miami stinks without Tua.
Exactly.
The game after ours, 8:15 game that I'm probably gonna miss most of coming home. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Probably. Is this the most interesting game of the weekend other than ours?
I think so. And you know something? If we win Sunday, I think you're going to hang out in the city for a while. We're going to enjoy it at a bar somewhere. So,
Maybe for a little bit, but I mean, I don't have the day off Monday like you do.
ugh, racist. It's awful.
I Yeah, my next scheduled day off is Memorial Day. So my stretch is New Year's to Memorial Day, no holidays.
Well, you're going to be taking the day off after the Super Bowl when we're flying back from Arizona.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't be on the plane and in the office at the same time.
Yeah, I think that is a fascinating game.
We
a
don't
guy
know
like-
if Lamar Jackson is playing, but it's not looking good, right?
Well, he was on that list of the starting the 14 starting quarterbacks. So I don't know what that means, but does it really matter if he's back with Cincinnati? I think Cincinnati wins.
I mean, I think Cincinnati wins, but it certainly matters if Lamar
Yeah,
Jackson
but I mean,
plays
as
or not.
far as winning or losing, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I mean, I have Cincinnati winning this game, but
Me too.
I mean, I could see. I don't know.
Well, I guess
Cincinnati's defense isn't really that good.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is the biggest chance for an upset in this playoff round?
But we got one more game.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
The biggest upset would probably be Miami at Buffalo.
Yeah.
How could it not be?
What about Tampa Bay beating Dallas?
No. I don't think that's that. Dallas is cold as shit, and it is not, a secret. They have limped into this playoffs. On the flip side, Tampa Bay, I mean, they have a losing record, but have they been steady the last couple weeks?
It's been very strange because, I've told this story before. I got a whole bunch of friends in Tampa, and I'm on these text chains, and for 56 minutes every Sunday, you would think it is the end of the world, an Armageddon, and this is the worst team ever. They got to fire the Glazers, the general manager, the head coach, the offensive coordinator. Brady's too old. And I look at my phone, and those fuckers won again. So I just think they're not a good team that somehow hangs around games, and then Tom Brady does his thing, who does it better than anybody I've ever seen in doing that thing. So I think Tampa Bay is going to win this one. I just have a very sneaky feeling that it's going to be an ugly game. I think Dak's going to do Dak things. I think Tom is going to do Tom things. That's going to be interesting. That might be the least home field advantage crowd. I think there might be a lot of Cowboy fans there, but I think in the end, I think Brady pulls it out with another 2-minute drive into the game, and they win a low-scoring, ugly game.
Well, I was kind of wrong. The Bucks are 5-6 over their last 11 games, so they're just the middle of the pack, but
in a bad division, playing not
in a shitty division. One of those games I think was like a lights out performance against Green Bay or something. Somebody beat the Christ out of them. The Niners.
Yep.
So I mean, Tampa Bay is not going far in this playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me if they won this game. I'm gonna stick with Dallas on this one. And mainly I'm going to say that is because when I look at these matchups, I could see Brady, if there's 2 minutes left and it's a one-score game, I think Tampa Bay wins. But if it's more than one score, it doesn't matter how much time is left. It's done. Because I think it's more about Dan Quinn versus the Tampa Bay offense than it is about anything else.
That's quite a mismatch. That might be the biggest mismatch in the entire first round of the playoffs right there.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, Dan Quinn is a very good defensive coordinator, and Brian Leftwich, if you heard what my friends think about him down there, they think he's the Antichrist right now.
Yeah. So to me, that's what this is. And that's why I have Dallas winning. But like I said, nobody does the 2-minute drill like Tom Brady. So if it's a one-score game and they're in 2 minutes and Tampa Bay has the ball, I think Tampa Bay will win the game.
Yep, agreed.
Wow. So that in my scenario of Dallas and San Francisco winning and the Giants winning, the Giants would then advance to play the Philadelphia Eagles in the link.
Are we going to that game?
I might be talked into it. I don't know. As long as there's enough of us to not get jumped.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that is you go an incognito game. I don't think you walk around that city wearing Giant stuff. It's just for our own safety. But I think we ask any of you out there right now who listen to this show, and people will see at the watch party, if the good fortune happens and we wins, who's in with us? Who's taking the train down to Philly with us?
I think there's a couple people that would go.
I think so. And again, I would certainly do it, but we have some work to do first.
Yeah. Let's not count our matchups before they happen.
Exactly.
Wow. So this was a monster of an episode, but this was exciting. I'm excited. I have been looking forward to this fucking weekend for like 2 weeks now.
Oh, it's been such a long. I've been working my ass off. I've been to the Garden 3 times this week to watch the Knicks, and I got to a Ranger game, and I'm just like, with all of this stuff going on and having hardly any sleep because of work, it's still like, okay, what's the secondary going to be like? Okay, what's Cafe got up his sleeve? Okay, how aggressive is Wink going to be? So it's kind of, the precious few seconds I have to kind of close my brain off from everything else is occupied with this game, and it's
out
so
in
much
Giants land.
Oh yeah, I would just, if we win this game, and no matter what happens after, we're going to go into this offseason feeling even better about ourselves than we do right now. And this is, again, year 1 of a rebuilding plan. It's far exceeded our expectations, far exceeded, what we thought was possible, what we've executed, what we thought. And, I know some people like, I don't like to be overrated. I don't like all the bullshit. I like getting our asses kissed. I like that fact. I mean, okay, we might have 9 games on primetime next year, but I want to be relevant. Being irrelevant's probably next to being bad is the worst thing you can be in sports, and we are no longer irrelevant. So thank you to the Maras for hiring this GM, this coaching staff, and for turning this around so quickly.
And the Pepsi and all of the towels with the coupons stapled to them.
Hey, those fuckers didn't give us a free Pepsi this year.
Yeah, we didn't. Did we get a towel? Oh, we got 2 towels this year, and we got pennants. Did we get pennants at games?
Yeah, remember I left it after.
That was from the game, right?
Yeah.
We didn't get that anywhere else. Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you for all that stuff. It's hanging up in my apartment. All right, we will see you guys with a very happy Tuesday morning podcast, reciting the 30-20 win over the Minnesota Vikings as I predicted. And
where do they find us, Grump?
That episode will be the same place that you found this one: iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, etc. In addition to YouTube, where it's best enjoyed. And of course, we are on Twitter. We're probably going to be live tweeting throughout the game, since we'll be in a group of people. I imagine conversations will be happening. And be like, I'm going to tweet that. And just throw that down. So at @football_grump, at the Cranky Fan.
And I would say also, if you can't go to the watch party, and first of all, if you're going to the watch party, we're looking forward to hanging out with all of our close friends and hopefully meet some new friends while we're there. But I believe that Bobby and Justin are live streaming the show from the party. So if you don't want to listen to Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson, who I think are actually not that bad, but if you want to turn the sound, if you want to turn the sound down and listen to them as they are live streaming the game, sync up your streams and everything, go for it. Maybe we'll pop on there. Who knows? So we're looking forward to that. Everything about Sunday is going to be great.
All right, everyone. Let's bring it in for Tuesday morning. Go Giants.
Go Giants.